In the following tutorial, we're going to cover pre-oop coding for our animations in the ShapeTweens file. Now we'll be using this for the ShapeTweens and then also the mask tweening file as well. So we're going to go back to the motion tweening file that we worked on before and find the code that we have there. You may remember that I asked you to go on, but we did the first two buttons, first two pairs of buttons and animations together in the tutorial. Anyway, the very first thing that we need to do is stop the animation from playing. You may remember that this .stop stops the main timeline, and then this anim2_mc.stop stops the timeline of the second animation. Then we have our function and event listener pairs for our stop button as well as our play button. So we're going to copy this code into our new file. So let's go into ShapeTweening, and now we need to create a new layer. So I'm going to create a new layer and call this Actions. And in that Actions layer, I'm going to paste my code. Now I'm going to change some of this stuff around for sure. So I'm going to only deal with one pair at first, or one animation at first. I have this .stop, then I have my functions and my event listeners. One of the things that I suggested doing, if you remember, is reorganizing it so that I have my functions and my event listeners kind of grouped together. Now, what I'm going to do is start to develop what's called a pre-oop version of this. Now, what a pre-oop means is that I'll be changing around some of the information in here to use variables when I can, when it makes sense, so that we have a little bit more flexibility with this code. So we're going to begin by creating a new function at the top. So I'll do function my play stop. So it kind of has both in there. And then inside this particular play stop function, I'm going to have two different things, or I'm going to have three different variables. I'm first going to have the play button, then the stop button, and then the animation to stop. So I'll do play button, stop button, and then the timeline. Now, it would be smart for me to probably use some of the acronyms that I've done before, or naming I've done before. My play button, my stop button, and my timeline. That way it's easier for us to tell that these are going to be our own variables that we're creating. Now I need a curly bracket, and then at the bottom of all the other code, I'm going to put my other curly bracket. Now if I auto-format, hopefully everything will jump in just a little bit. Now what we're going to do is change around those things that we can to make them a little bit more generic and also use these variable names. So my timeline is one of the things that we're going to use, my play button and my stop button. So let's start with my timeline, just since we'll be working from the top down. And this is a current timeline of the main movie clip, and we're going to replace that with my timeline, so that anytime we pass a timeline to it, to this function, it will use whatever variable we've passed. Now we're also going to change this .play to my timeline.play, and this .stop to my timeline.stop. Let me move back just a little bit more so I can see a little bit more code here. Now the next thing we have is my stop button. So I'm going to copy that, find where I have the stop button, and replace that. Then, of course, we're going to replace the my play button where it says anim1 play button. So let's take a look at this real quick. When we run this function, it is going to be passed three variables: a play button, a stop button, and a timeline. It'll first stop the timeline, whatever's passed to it. Then we have our two functions that we're creating. One is called main play, which will, actually it can just be my play. That might even be better. My play, my stop. My play, my stop. That might make more sense, because this will have a timeline that plays, and it is going to be receiving an event mouse event, and that's coming from the mouse event.click, and it will be stop or playing whichever timeline we're passing to it. Then the myStop function will be stopping whatever timeline we pass to it. Then the myPlay button will be passed to the event listener running that function called myPlay, and the myStop button will be running the myStop function. And these are all internal to this other function. What's interesting is that since this code is internal to the myPlay stop function, they won't be accessible on the main timeline. The only thing on the main timeline that we can access is this main function that we created. So I'm going to copy that real quick and go underneath and paste it. Now in order to invoke this function, I'm going to take off function because that would be creating a new function, and I'm going to replace elements as needed. So my play button will be the first play button here, so I need to see the button, and it's going to be anim1 play button. So let's go back to my actions, and it's not a bad idea, by the way, to go ahead and pin the active script. So we're going to replace my play button with anim1 play button. We're going to replace my stop button with anim1 stop button. And then the timeline is going to be this. And then after that line we should put a semicolon. So let's try this out and see if it works. We'll test it. We can now stop and play that timeline. Now it seems as though, let me look back at this. You might have remembered a long time ago we were talking about, or in another tutorial we were talking about not repeating that first keyframe again, and we did that by inserting a keyframe at the end, going to that code and saying go to and play frame 2. That way it bypasses that action at the beginning, which is the stopping. So now when we hit play, it'll keep on repeating until I press stop. Now the nice thing about this particular event listener, or I'm sorry, not event listener, this pre-oop method of coding, is that I can easily replace this for the next item. All I have to do is copy that line and change the information that's needed to change. Animation 2 play button, animation 2 stop button, and this will play the anim2, and you could do this dot anim2 underscore MC. Okay, a term is undefined and has no properties. Let's see what I may have done. I may just need to take off this dot here. Variable anim2 underscore MC. So let's see what's going on here. Could be that I've never given it an instance name. So anim2 underscore MC, and this of course would be anim3 underscore MC, and that would be anim4 underscore MC. So the problem was just most likely that I just never gave it an instance name. So there we go. Now we can play and stop that timeline. So pretty easy to do, and the nice thing about this pre-oop code is that for me to make this work for the next two animations, all I have to do is make sure first that I give an instance name to those animations, and then duplicate this line and change the two button variable names, and then the instance name of the timeline, and that's it. And that's why the pre-oop method is a really beneficial way of coding, because it takes the methods of object-oriented programming language and puts it into your regular coding framework in a way that makes flexible and easily repeatable code. And make sure that you do this for the end of the tutorial so that you get the next two animations playing and stopping, and then also repeat this for your final mask tutorial as well. Thanks.